Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC on ESPN +9, Iaquinta versus Donald Cerrone. We're going to talk about our two free plays. One of them is going to be on the main event. Also, one other play, so I want to get into those on this show, as well as we will have our best bet for purchase on Wagertalk. I will have it up for purchase either later today, which is Thursday, or on Friday. A little bit behind there, crazy week, very busy. I had a crazy Wednesday, so want to make sure I get that out for you guys to purchase. And I appreciate everybody who has been supporting the channel as always. Everyone who hits those thumbs up buttons, I appreciate it. This is a growing community, a lot more great people down below giving great advice as well, and that's what this is about. It's about me, but it's also about growing this community and us as a collective community going out and winning money, beating those bookies. So that's what we're here to do. So before we do, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell icon. I will always continue the conversation down below in the comments section. So what we will first talk about is our free play. Now our free play is between Iaquinta and Donald Cerrone. Now I wanted to talk about this play. It's one that I was, at first looking at it, I wasn't sure, but the more that I was diving into it, I felt better and better as I was diving into this fight, doing more research, looking back at fight tape, looking back at what these guys have done. So we will get into that. So what we're going to talk about first, we've got Iaquinta. He is 14-4. His current price tag is -136. You've got Donald Cerrone, who is 35-11. Current price tag around +115. Now, these two here, you've got, Iaquinta, and I'm going to quickly run down some of their past fights and my, really my take on some of those fights. Now, the last fight with Iaquinta was against Kevin Lee. Now, this fight was a fight that I really was high on Kevin Lee. I really thought that Kevin Lee against Iaquinta would be a tough matchup. I really liked that Iaquinta did have the better striking, but I thought the pressure and some of those takedowns, although Iaquinta can nullify that, those takedowns would really help Kevin Lee, and just really able to get inside, thought he'd be stronger, thought he'd really work inside a little bit. Now Iaquinta, although the fight was pretty close, it was all Al, in my opinion there. I mean, he really was outworking him, outstriking him, landing the more significant shots, and that's something that, against somebody who is a little bit chinny like Cerrone, that could be a little bit of an issue and something that worries me moving forward in breaking this fight down. Now, prior to that, he fought Khabib on a day notice. What a gangster move, fighting one of the scariest guys in the UFC, getting ground and pounded to death. He ended up fighting very well, a landslide victory for Khabib, but in 1 day's notice, he was able to take that fight, so you give him props there. So you can't really take too much away from him on that situation, because he lost to Khabib, and also it was a day's notice. But you go on the next fight there, he fought Diego Sanchez. He knocked out Diego Sanchez, who is another kind of a chinny guy. He went out there, he was brawling with Iaquinta, which is probably the best scenario you can get if you are Iaquinta. You want that pressure because you're just looking to throw big bombs, and Al definitely is very tough when it comes to that, and he's not scared to stand in the pocket and trade and get somebody like Diego. That's not something that's really going to work for him, especially at this point in his career and just the damage and mileage that he has taken. And before that, he ended up beating in a very close split decision against Jorge Masvidal. Now, looking over at Donald Cerrone, well-rounded fighter. He's 3-1 out of his last 4. And breaking down some of the fights that he had. Now, his fight before this, or his last fight, I should say, was against Alexander Hernandez. Now, this was a fight, you had a lot of hype behind Hernandez. Hernandez was, talking the talk, looked the part, had some, some nice shining moments in some past fights, had some wins, looking to really build up that hype train. And boy, did Donald Cerrone derail that in a big way. I mean, this was almost, in my opinion, a vintage Donald Cerrone. I mean, I feel like Donald Cerrone has been counted out so many times. He's looked lackluster in a couple spots and, almost looked unmotivated. And the fact that he went into this fight against a young, hungry guy, he almost looked like Donald Cerrone was almost laughing at him, which, I mean, Hernandez was really, really giving it to him, and he ended up laughing it off, and a one-sided victory, a TKO victory for Cerrone. I like the way that he fought in that, and that, I think, really brings a lot to this fight, which we'll talk about in a minute, but that really brings a lot to this next fight. And then prior to that, he fought Mike Perry. Now, this was a fight, I gotta say, I was on Perry. I mean, this was a fight I looked at and I said, you know what? Mike Perry, big power, he needs to just land one. That's all that he's gonna need. And that, Mike Perry, again, with the pressure, is gonna be something tough for Cerrone to probably really withstand over a duration. And Mike Perry fought terribly, and that was a big thing that a lot of people were down on him, even going up on his last fight against Cowboy Cerrone, that, he's not a smart fighter. He doesn't really have that fight IQ. And in this fight here, he went up, pushing up against Cerrone. Cerrone ends up getting a submission victory. Perry was kind of chasing him to the ground, ends up losing that fight. Cerrone ends up winning that fight. I thought that was another nice performance for him, because that was a fight that could have easily, he could have been put away early, and Cerrone really fought and ended up getting that early stoppage. Prior to that, he fought Leon Edwards. A very close decision in here, but this was a fight that this is kind of where I started looking at Cerrone as a guy that was unmotivated. I mean, even leading up to that fight, he sounded like he was just doing other things, wasn't really focused on fighting, talking about rock climbing and wakeboarding and surfing and all these other things he does, dirt bike. And now it sounds like his tone has a little bit changed. And in that fight there, I think, Edwards looked pretty good in there, but it was spots where I thought Cerrone could have taken advantage of Leon Edwards, but he ended up losing that close decision against Leon Edwards. And prior to that, he ended up knocking out Yancy Medeiros in the first round. So, breaking all of that down, I mean, I like to go over the last few fights to get into my thought process on where I'm really seeing this fight going. And that's a part of this, when we break this down, is we're not pouring out statistics. This isn't ESPN. We're not looking to talk about, all these other statistics. Some of them, yes, but not all of them. We're looking for who has got multiple paths to victory, where their opportunity lies, and who is elevating, and where is their spot that the other guy can expose. So here, when you take a look at it, obviously the big thing with Iaquinta is his boxing. I mean, he's got terrific boxing. He's got nice hand speed. The way that he moves around the cage is nice. His toughness is very, very prevalent when he's at any point in any fight. I mean, we're talking about Khabib, very tough against even Kevin Lee, in spots where Kevin Lee was landing big shots. I mean, his face was pretty beaten up, but he just kept pushing forward and proving each round that he was able to chip away and get that win each round. So he looked good there in those spots. But his forward movement is something that I think that can cause problems for Donald Cerrone in this situation. The forward pressure, the movement, that can cause problems. But the big thing for me here when I'm breaking down this fight is the fact that Iaquinta, although he's got the wrestling, and, he's got that background, he has fallen more in love with his striking. And he's going to want to be in that boxing range. And that's going to be the range where somebody like Donald Cerrone, who has terrific kicks, terrific kickboxing, that's the kind of space that you don't want to give Donald Cerrone. Now, Donald Cerrone, when I'm breaking down what they do stylistically, I mean, he's got better grappling, in my opinion, better BJJ. He's got better kicks. Overall, I think that he's level changing on his kicks, because the way that Iaquinta stands, he's very low in his stance, kind of wide, and that front leg, I think, is something that Donald Cerrone can just chip away at throughout a 5-round fight. Now, I think that's going to be something that can take some power away from Iaquinta. I think that that's something that's going to make Al start to think a little bit more. So if they even go to the ground, I like Cerrone on the ground. I think that he takes advantage of the wrestler on the ground. Now, of course, if Iaquinta's on top, I even like Cerrone off of his back there. I think he has a lot more opportunities to make things happen. Now, Al's tough, and he's got some power behind him, but I think that the volume that Cerrone can really put out is something that I think is going to be tough for him. And I think the kicks is going to be really a big difference maker. When he's going to throw those hard body kicks to Iaquinta, when Al's looking for those exchanges within the pocket or even a little bit outside the pocket, that's really where Cerrone is comfortable. And I think he's going to push that volume out. I think that's going to really lead to a lot of opportunities for him to really chip away. Now, Could he put him away? I think that's possible, but I think this is going to be a close fight. I could see it as a decision, but I think that there's opportunities here throughout this fight that Al is just not going to have those opportunities to really pick apart. You even look at Kevin Lee, and the reason he was able to work Kevin Lee is he was able to withstand the takedowns and then was able to just really work the striking. And that's something even with Diego Sanchez, he won that fight. Diego really worked right to the strengths of Al Iaquinta. So here for me, I like the plus odds at plus 115 on Cerrone. I think that he's going to have opportunities here throughout this fight. He's talked about, and that was what I was going to talk about actually after Leon Edwards' fight, was that after Leon Edwards' fight, I was so down on him because he just seemed uninterested. And the tone is just, hey, I want to fight. I just want to fight. Now he's starting to talk about, I want to go for a title. And I want to, which he is a fan favorite, and he could work his way up there, but he goes, I want to go for a title, and I want to be a very active champion. So it's a different tone. I think he knows how important this is. Al Iaquinta is on the verge of a possible title fight. If he keeps pulling it, pushing the way that he's pushing, and he's looked impressive in certain spots, and the way that he stepped up against Khabib, that's definitely going to earn him some, some clout within the UFC. But for me here, I like Donald Cerrone, possibly get the finish, but I'd like him to get the victory as my free play for ESPN +9. Now, the other one I'll go over real quickly is Shane Burgos versus Cub Swanson. Now, I like this fight a lot here. Now, talking to a lot of people are kind of back and forth on this one. You've got Shane Burgos, who is 11-1. He's minus 160. You've got Cub Swanson. He's 25-10. He's plus 138. And looking here, breaking it down real quickly, the first thing you're going to look at Cub Swanson is that he is a vet. I mean, he is a vet. He has fought tough top competitors throughout his career, has never hit that championship level, but always been one of the elite throughout his career, top 10 guy consistently. And over his last 3 fights, he fought 4 fights ago, was his last win against Artem Lobov. Now, Artem isn't even in the UFC anymore. He's in bare knuckle fighting now. But this was a fight I believe was very teed up for just a complete knockout win for Cub Swanson. Now, he looked good. Cub Swanson definitely, picked him apart. And, you've got the alligator arms, the really short arms that Artem has. And it was really, to me, set up as this should be a knockout victory, really build back Cub Swanson. He looked good, but I thought he didn't look that good against the guy that I thought he was just so superior when it comes to the ground game, striking, grappling. Everything should have been, it should have been a lopsided victory. Decision-wise, yes, it went 5 rounds and he won, but to me, this was a finish written all over it. But he did get that victory. But to me, taking it into the next few fights is something to really think about. Now, if you look at Brian Ortega was the next fight that he had. Tough fight, Ortega's tough. But you see what Ortega now, he's very, very susceptible to the striking. And the fact that Cub Swanson was not able to really implement the same game plan that Max Holloway did, which obviously Max is Max and he's one of the best right now. But the fact that Brian Ortega was able to withstand that and get the finish on Cub Swanson, I think that says a lot about kind of where this fight could possibly go. And then the fight after that was a short notice. It was against Frankie Edgar. He ended up losing that decision. I thought that, again, that's another fight. That's a winnable fight. I know Frankie Edgar is, a legend within the sport, multiple champion, all these great things that he's done. But this was a fight here that I thought was 2 vets, and this could be a winnable fight for him, but I didn't like the way that he looked there, Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson ends up losing the decision. And then against Renato Mercado. Against Mercado, this was a fight, again, another fight that I believe should have been an absolutely, great opportunity for Cub Swanson again. Now, some of these guys are ranked higher than him, but there were fights that I thought that he could have looked a little bit better than what he presented. And in that fight against Mercado, he was dropped against him, which does not say too much about his chin at this point, which maybe is a little susceptible to the big strikes now at this point, his career, longevity, the MMA mileage that he's had. So Mercado ends up beating Cub Swanson. So out of Cub Swanson's last 4 fights, he's 1-3, fought some tough guys, but fought, besides Ortega, Mercado definitely has some skill. He's definitely starting to really evolve. But I don't like what I saw with him here. For me, I like Burgos here. Now, Burgos is going to have the reach advantage. He's going to have the 5-inch reach advantage. He's going to have the 3-inch height advantage. And I like the fact that he really uses his range well. Now, he's able to really move around the cage nicely, work his jab, work his combination. He's shown that he's got some power, but he's also shown that he's been able to submit guys on the ground. He has not fought the guys that Cub Swanson has fought, so there's definitely the competition levels a little bit different there. But I kind of see this as the swan song, if you will, for Cub Swanson. I just see this kind of being the end. If he loses here, that's really going to hurt him overall in his career, where he's at. I know that he wants to keep fighting. He's not a guy that's talking about retirement at this point, but I like Shane Burgos overall. I think the well-roundedness, and you've got a guy like Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson is not a kind of guy that's going to just pour out volume. He's just not that kind of guy. He's looking for the one or two big shots, and he kind of resets or he looks for different positioning. We've got a guy like Burgos who is going to have that volume, and I like that he's going to be able to accumulatively put damage out there over 3 rounds. I really believe that that's going to be something that gives him the opportunity. Now, you've got the volume guy over the guy that's looking for the big shots, looking for the haymakers. I like Burgos here. I think the minus 160 price is not terrible. I think that it's right in the wheelhouse where I think it should be at this point for Cub Swanson. Some people saying they like Cub Swanson because he's the vet, he's the known name, and you're getting plus odds on him. I can't knock anybody for taking Cub Swanson in this spot here, but I like the up-and-comer that he has not proven himself fully because he's young within the UFC, but I think that he's growing, and as long as he can keep his lackadaisical defense and start to really protect himself a little bit better, which I think he will here. I like that Burgos can take this fight anywhere, but if he uses his range, I think that's a great spot for him. And even if they get in tight, I still like Burgos working the clinch or even getting it to the ground. Now you've got Cub, who's a BJJ black belt, but I still like that Burgos is going to be able to really work himself on the ground and even get himself out of danger. So overall here, as my other play, I like Shane Burgos to win at minus 160. Those are the 2 free plays. Definitely subscribe if not yet done so. I will have my best bet up on Friday, which is tomorrow. Check out Wagertalk. I will have linked down in the description. Check it out, make the purchase, and get involved with the community. Again, I always appreciate everybody who gives us a thumbs up, subscribes, get a part of this community. I always like talking to people during the events, after the events, and we always do our bet review show on Sunday. So I will see you then, and this is Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show, and I'll see you next time.